Welcome everyone to Nikki Loves Books. I'm of course Nikki, and this is Merlin. I don't think he wants to be up here right now. I of course am recording. He is being a nuisance. So I was picking up hoping that he would, come down, lay down my lap, but he's not having it. So hopefully he doesn't cause too many problems while we're recording this today. We are gathered here today to talk about The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd-Jones. So this was the OwlCrate book for September in 2019. So I'm a smidgen, just a smidgen behind on my OwlCrate. So if you follow my channel, I have been actually reading the OwlCrate books as they've been coming out lately, but there was a good period of time where I was reading other books, not the OwlCrate books, so I'm now trying to backtrack also. And I happened to just read The Drowned Woods, which was the OwlCrate book for last month, so August 2022. And The Drowned Woods is standalone, but it does happen in the same universe as The Bone Houses. I enjoyed The Drowned Woods immensely, and so I went ahead and decided to jump out of the order of the OwlCrate books I was reading through and read The Bone Houses. So that is our review for today. Just as a reminder, because this is an OwlCrate book, the cover does look different. So you might have the same book, or you might be looking to purchase The Bone Houses and it looks different. OwlCrate does exclusive covers, so that is why mine looks different, so don't panic. If you are ever interested in getting an OwlCrate box and you're hesitant to purchase it, feel free to check out my unboxing videos to kind of get an idea of what you'll be getting in the box. I want to remind you all, before we get into the summary and then the book review with that, my book reviews are non-spoilers, so there's nothing I will be revealing here that you shouldn't be able to find out from the summary of the book, like the back of the book or the book flap in this case. Just know that if I do talk about something that's not in the summary, it's always going to be in general terms. I'm never going to name names. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh my god, this character dies, and oh, Jack and Sally, they totally become an item at the end of the movie, and they're together forever. Now, you're not going to get full-on spoilers whatsoever. I try to be kind because I know a lot of you don't like spoilers. I gave The Bone Houses a 5 out of 10 stars. Before we jump into the reasoning for my score and the actual book review, let's go ahead and talk about what The Bone Houses is actually about. Orphaned, Rin does her best to provide for her siblings as a gravedigger. The biggest problem with her job, though, is that the dead actually won't stay dead. Known as bone houses, these risen corpses are plaguing her town and her family, and so Rin decides to take matters into her own hands. Armed with an axe and teaming up with Ellis, the newly arrived map maker, Rin takes off to the forest in search of the mythical fairylands in order to put the bone houses down into the grave once and for all, or at least die trying. Again, I gave The Bone Houses a 5 out of 10 stars, so not a great score. I felt very indifferent to this novel, so 5 out of 10, right at that midway point. So I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. We're going to go ahead and jump into the first couple of things that I did like about The Bone Houses. We'll talk a little bit about the things I didn't like, and then wrap up with the last couple of things I liked about it. First thing I liked about The Bone Houses was actually the setting. So this is supposed to be medieval times, which is not necessarily my favorite times. Like, there's so many bad things about it. Like, the clothing sucked. Obviously, no plumbing. Hygiene really sucked. I'm sure the food wasn't all that great either. So a lot of things I don't like about that time period. However, I do enjoy novels that don't take place in contemporary times. So generally, past settings is what I enjoy. So I did like that it was medieval settings. And specifically, even though this is a fantasy novel, it is Welsh inspired. a lot of fantasy novels do have settings that are European inspired, and I generally like those, but I like ones that are inspired by other cultures also. And I keep looking off because I'm trying to find out what Merlin's doing, because he's doing something he's not supposed to. Anyways, so it is supposed to be medieval Welsh inspired setting, which I typically enjoy. Number two, kind of going in with the setting, is that this is inspired by Welsh mythology. So it does have that kind of fairy tale component. And specifically, the myth that this story is inspired from is the Cauldron of Immortality. So there is that element. I like that. If you guys watched my other video of the Drowned Woods, I talked about that as well, in the sense that I like fairy tale retellings. I think it's a fun, interesting way to introduce people to different myths and different cultures and myths. I also thought it was a fun way to take this myth. So this cauldron, if you boil water in it and drink the water, it gives you immortality. So that is the myth, as far as I know. I have not read the original myth, but that is, they kind of talk about it in the bone houses. And I figured that's the original myth. You know, and I liked this idea of this myth, and then the author, Emily Lloyd-Jones, kind of tweaks it in the sense of what could happen if something goes a little wrong with the cauldron. And I thought that was fun, and, you know, it's an original take on the myth. Number three of my reasons that I liked the Bone Houses is actually the characters. So there's two main characters. One is Rin, who is the female protagonist. She's the main character. She is someone who I could relate to. You know, her motivation, her drive is simply to protect her family. And I appreciate that, but it's also very relatable. I think all of us can relate to that. You know, we have people in our lives that we want to protect at all costs. And so that is her driving force. You know, she's not out for glory or I'm going to go make a name for myself. Like, literally the only thing she wants to do is to protect her family and make sure the bone houses can't hurt them. Fair. Ellis is our other main character, and he is a map maker who is not very good at roughing it. So we meet him in the woods and things are not going well for him, and he's just not built for the outdoors, which I can totally relate to. The other piece that I really liked from his character, which was totally relatable, at least for me on a personal level, is that he's searching for his family. He was simply found in the woods, you know, years ago when he was a kid. So he is looking for his family of origin because he has questions. You know, what happened? Did he get lost? Was he abandoned? Did they die? So he's out for answers, and being a child who was adopted myself, that is a very, very, very strong need to know. There are always questions, and even when you understand why you were given up, you know, whether it was, you know, someone died or they had to due to their circumstances, you still want to know them. You still want to know their story. So that was, I think, very well done, because it is very typical for humans to want to know who their parents were, even when they had everything. So Ellis was brought up in the palace. Like, every material need was met, every educational need was met. He had clothing, he had shelter, he had everything he really could ask for. But that doesn't take away the fact that he still wanted to know where he came from. And lastly, the best character in the book, surprise, surprise, is a goat. So Emily Lloyd-Jones, in both her books, and this one, The Bone Houses, and in The Drowned Woods, had an animal character that are pretty active with the main characters. So it's not like they're like, oh, the character had a dog, and you never hear about the dog. Her animal characters are continuously mentioned throughout the book. They partake in some of the action sometimes, and it's a lot of fun. So it was fun to have a goat in the Bone Houses. Probably wouldn't be my first choice of pet, but I'm just like, they're kind of cute. Like, not gonna lie, their eyes kind of freak me out. Like, I don't like the slitted eyes. Like, a little weird. But I'm like, they're also really cute. I'm like, it's hard not to like animals. I'm sorry. So the goat is a great comical character. Okay, so let us get into the things I did not like about the bone houses. Not going to spend a lot of time here because if you guys don't know this, I don't like bashing on authors or trash talking even books sometimes, unless like they're like I've read some shitty ass books. I'll be the first one to admit that. If you're an avid reader, I think we've all come across shitty ass books. Not saying that The Bone Houses was a shitty ass book. It was not. Again, 5 out of 10. Not a bad score. Regardless, I don't like spending a lot of time talking shit about a book. I'm just like, if you don't like it, just don't read it. Move on. And I'm one of those readers that it is really hard for me to just call it and just be like, you know what, I'm not going to read this shitty ass book. But I tried to just push through it. That being said, I could totally see myself doing a video on a shitty ass book and just being like, I fucking hated this. So who knows? I might do it. In general, I don't like to trash talk books. So we're just gonna keep this short and sweet, get to the point, and get back into what I did like. So the first thing I didn't like about the Bone Houses is actually it deals with zombies. And I know likey zombies. I am not into zombies. Little fun fact about me, I actually faint from the sight of blood, guts, yeah, any of that. No, just not happening with me. So zombies, like, just freak me out on a whole nother level. And it's disgusting. Like, I'm like, it's a rotting corpse. Like, ew. I couldn't even imagine the smell. And it's funny because in the Bone Houses, they talk about the smell. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about the smell. For some of you who are judging, like, if you don't like zombies, then why did you pick up this book? I did not pick up this book. This book came to me. Again, OwlCrate book. Don't judge me. I do read all my OwlCrate books. Even if, like, I'm starting to read it and be like, oh, I don't like this book. I don't think I'm going to enjoy this book. I still read it. I don't know. Maybe I'm too stubborn. But regardless, even if I'm like, I don't think I'm going to like this book very much, I still read it. So Bone Houses has zombies. I don't like zombies. Zombies freak me out. I don't like zombie movies. Ugh, just no. So zombies was the main reason why I didn't like this book. With that being said, there's a possibility that because of this main point that I didn't like literally the central subject matter of this book, so zombies, aka the Bone Houses, the rest of my negatives might actually be colored by that dislike for zombies, and specifically the fact that I didn't like zombies. I felt disgusted reading this book, which is not a good feeling when you're reading a book. Like, I want positive feeling. You know, I'm cool with having some, you know, anger and some sadness, like, absolutely. But I don't necessarily think I want to be reading a book and feel disgusted. And I felt disgusted. And I think that might have been why, I wanted to just get this book over and done with, so I was trying to read it fast, but it was also kind of painful in a way because I was disgusted. And again, the next two things might be colored by the fact that I felt disgusted and yucky zombies and gross. So number 2 was I felt like it was slow. I felt like things were dragging. I just wanted to be like, let's get to the woods. Why are we dilly-dallying? Okay, let's move on. Get this over with. So I felt like the plot kind of like started to take off, and then they'd be like, oh, then let's just hang out in the village, and then go forward a step, and they'd be like, yeah, we should go do that. Oh, we'll wait, and then, you know, something happens, and they're like, okay, well, now we should go, you know, and I'm just like, can you go? Can you just get on in the woods and take care of this? And then they stop somewhere along the way, and I'm just like, no, just go to the fairylands, people. Take care of the zombies. Let's just end this. The last thing I didn't like about the Bone Houses was actually the plot, in the sense of the main character just being like, there's a big bad, I'm gonna go find out why, which necessarily isn't terrible. Because again, I liked Rin's motivation. You know, she was out there to protect her family, protect what was hers. It was too simple of a plot, if that makes sense. There's a bad thing, main character's like, I don't like the bad thing, I'm gonna go solve the bad thing problem. You know, like there wasn't much getting there. Like it just a little lackluster. There we go. That's what it is. It's a little lackluster. Like I'm just like, okay, like basic plot. So I wasn't too thrilled about it because there wasn't more to it in a sense. And I will give Emily Lloyd-Jones credit that, you know, there's more to the story when you find out why the bone houses exist, what's happening. So there is more story, but I'm like, what actually gets everything started and the main goal is really kind of just basic. Like, oh, a bad thing. I'm the protagonist. I take care of bad thing. The end. All right, let's jump back into the good things, though, that I liked about the bone houses. So number 4 is actually probably my absolute favorite thing about the bone houses. I think this is such an important theme and subject matter, especially for Americans, because we don't like talking about it or dealing with it. And that is grief. Grief and loss, death. This is what this book touches upon, and I could not appreciate it more for that fact. It is incredibly hard to deal with grief and loss. And loss can include a lot of things. You know, loss can be loss of a job. Loss can be loss of a home. Loss can be that you didn't lose someone to death, but maybe they cut you out of their life. Maybe you broke up. I'm like, that's still a loss, and it's still very difficult. So grief and loss is an extremely important topic, especially for people's mental health, emotional well-being. And as Americans, we really do have this kind of undertone policy of suck it up and move on, which is really difficult and is not helpful to the grieving process. And grieving is a process. It really helps to have rituals to feel like there's a conclusion, to feel like you grieved, to feel like you were able to actually let go. And this book also talks about how hard it is when there's uncertainty, when you don't know what actually happened to that person, and how in a lot of ways that's almost worse because you don't have the closure and you don't have the rituals. So it can be really difficult to deal with uncertainty that way. Ultimately, I think the book is really kind of stressing the need that, yes, with death, we need to grieve it. We need to learn to deal with loss, and we need to let go. We can't hold on to the dead and keep them alive simply because we don't want to let them go. They deserve peace, and we deserve peace knowing that they're okay. I love that message, and I think that's so important to remember. And I really appreciated that the Bone Houses literally was centered around all of that. I just wish there wasn't zombies included, but it was a great way to articulate these ideas of, you know, the dead need to remain dead, and we need to let them go. Number 5 is love. So it's not a main part of the book. Similar to The Drowned Woods by Emily Lloyd-Jones, The Bone Houses does have a slight undercurrent of romance. It's not a romance novel by any means. The love story is very soft, quiet, not in your face, and it really fits the characters, the two characters who fall in love. Like, I'm just like, it really fits their personality to just have it be very gentle and smooth and just trying to get to know each other. So there is that undercurrent of a love story, and I always appreciate that, and seeing characters fall in love in their own way. That is it. Those are my 5 things that I liked about the Bone Houses. I would love to hear your thoughts. So if the Bone Houses is something that you're looking forward to reading, please let me know. If it's something you've read and you had a very different experience than I did, please let me know. I would love to hear about it. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and absolutely please be sure to subscribe if you would like to hear more book reviews. Thanks so much, everyone. I appreciate it.